Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining. My name is Berit and today I want to talk about Out of the Silent Planet. Out of the silent planet we are. You know what? If that song is now stuck in your ear, I'm not even sorry because I think it's a great song. So today I want to talk about a science fiction novel by the Irish author C.S. Lewis, and as you might have guessed, there was exactly one reason why I was even interested in reading that book, and that reason was published in the year of 2000 on the Brave New World album by Iron Maiden. It is safe to say that this is my favorite Iron Maiden album. I love it start to finish, although I think my favorite individual songs are not necessarily on that album. But anyway, I love the album. It's my favorite. So I've been aware of the fact that Iron Maiden made quite some songs that were inspired by literature, and I finally read one of the texts that inspired one of their songs, and it took me only about 12 years, so yay! So yeah, Out of the Silent Planet is a science fiction novel by C.S. Lewis published in 1938, and it's also the first volume in a science fiction trilogy by him. I have to say I was never really interested in reading anything by C.S. Lewis. I was aware that he wrote the Narnia novels, but I was never really interested in reading those, so that was actually the first novel I ever read by C.S. Lewis. So this video will also be a little spoilery to the extent that the Iron Maiden song is a spoiler for the book. Just, you know, as a fair FYI before we start. This novel is about a college fellow, a linguist named Ransom. And there is quite the hidden meaning to his name. Because of a situation, he comes upon two other researchers, one of whom he actually knows, and he ends up being kidnapped by them into space. And his two kidnappers, who are named Weston and Divine, they take him to a strange place, a different planet. And there they want to use him as ransom. Get it? Because that's also his name. They want to exchange him for something, and Ransom doesn't know for what. Anyway, Ransom escapes and he eventually meets one of the creatures who live on this planet, which by the way is called Malacandra. And Ransom realizes that the creature he meets has a language, so he tries to communicate with it, which is quite interesting because he's a linguist, so he kind of immediately wants to learn the language and wants to start communicating with that being. So he becomes acquainted with this being and with other beings on the planet, and he learns more about how they live, about the place, about its geography, and everything about this planet and life on the planet is in many ways different from life on Earth. Another thing that is kind of different on Malacandra is that there are these kind of aerial light beings called Eldila. They are kind of spirit-like, but the inhabitants of Malacandra, they can see them and they can also communicate with them. And these Eldila, they eventually send Ransom to this being called Oyarsa, which is kind of a godlike figure. So Ransom, after a while, he starts his journey to Oyarsa, which is a quite long journey, so he experiences more of the landscape of Malacandra on his way, and he's not quite sure who that Oyarsa is, why he should go there, what he has to expect there, etc. But anyway, he goes there because he's sent there, and the beings, the creatures who live on Malacandra, they kind of know that they have to follow Oyarsa's will, not in a like dictator way, but in a kind of he is the ultimate good and he guides us kind of way. So Ransom goes there. He also eventually finds out that on Malacandra, Earth is actually called Tulkandra, which means silent planet. And here I refer back to Iron Maiden, who sing out of the silent planet, out of the silent planet we are, out of the silent planet. This verse, Out of the Silent Planet, by the way, appears 36 times in that song, out of an amount of 64 verses in total, if I counted correctly and if I can trust the lyrics that I found to count how many times Out of the Silent Planet appears. So more than half the song is actually its title. So you can say that this is not Iron Maiden's lyrically most varied song that they ever made. But it's great anyway. So yeah, we kind of know that humans come from a planet that is silent, but just why it is silent, I won't tell you here because that would be like the spoiler. But I will say that there is a longer key scene in the novel towards the end, which is quite interesting, but also it becomes clear here that C.S. Lewis was kind of a Christian author. Christian as in, I read that he was also known for quite some theoretical work about like Christian belief that he wrote. And he also used quite some Christian symbolism in the Narnia Chronicles. And we also have quite some Christian references throughout this novel, and of course especially in the key scene. And we also have several references to Milton in the book. Paradise Lost. And I will also say that Iron Maiden do mention that the novel is pretty fairy tale-like, I think, and the description of Malacandra is really otherworldly. I think it's fascinatingly weird. I also think that the narrative style in the book is very beautiful. It also feels kind of like old sci-fi, and I mean the book is pretty old. It's been like 80 years since the book came out. And it's not very focused on like technical stuff or natural science stuff, but it's more philosophical. And it also has some explicit references to H.G. Wells, apart from like Milton references. So if that sounds interesting to you, I say read the novel if you haven't. I thought it was quite nice, and it's also pretty short. It has like 160 pages, so it's also a quick read, kind of. I don't necessarily think that C.S. Lewis will now become like my favorite author, simply because I'm not very interested in like Christian symbolism and Christian references and stuff. But you know, I had a good time. I also revisited my favorite Iron Maiden album in a new way, and I don't think I would have read the book without like knowing of the song, and I thought it was a good inspiration to read something that I never would have read otherwise, that I wouldn't even have known of otherwise. So yeah, and as I said, the novel is quite good, so I'm glad I read it. I don't know if I will read the rest of the series. I don't think it's very high on my list for now, but yeah, I had a good time. If fairy tale like old-timey science fiction sounds good to you, then I think you might like the book. And yeah, so yeah, that is it for today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have read the book or if you've read the whole series, please let me know what you think, and I will go back and continue listening to that album now. So maybe I'll see you in the next one, and bye.